Chapter 4192. The next day. In accordance with the previous promise, King Jupun divided up the treasures of Yinpeng and His Majesty's ultimate master to the gunner and other people. Immediately, the gunner and more than 10 ultimate masters were overjoyed and celebrated. It didn't take long for Zhu Jiawang, Zhen Wushuang, and Qing Feng to wait for the three, and they unanimously decided to leave the ruins of Tai Luo. For King Zhoulong, it's the right way to go back and use the supreme divine medicine to break the supreme. For Zhen Wushuang, the greatest opportunity of Taro's remains has been obtained by him, so there is no need to stay. Qing Feng Shenhu is optional or not. 3 days later, the three stepped out of the ruins of Tai Luo. Outside the ruins of Tai Luo, there is still a lively scene. Some restaurants, dongays, and trading markets are crowded with people. All major forces set up camps here, of which the Jodi Pavilion is the most prominent. Under the intentionally hidden breath of Zhen Wushuang, none of them recognized the three. Let's go. Just when King Zhoujia planned to release the spacecraft to leave. Wait. Zhen Wushuang shook his head, looked at Jodi Pavilion, and said, I have one more thing to deal with, wait for me. It is good. The king of Zhoujia nodded, and Zhen Wushuang's request naturally made him agree. Mixed with the flow of people, Zhen Wushuang lowered his hood slightly and walked into the Jodi Pavilion. Sir, what do you need to buy? We have all kinds of treasures that have just come out of the ruins, including various special elixir. Responsible for the reception is a beauty girl with a 5th grade. Although she saw Zhen Wushuang only had the 4th grade as the master, she did not take it lightly. Before she finished speaking, she saw Zhen Wushuang pull out a token with the word 9 emperors, and her face suddenly changed. The strongest on the list of 9 emperors? Yours please upstairs. The beauty of the beautiful girl immediately became respectful, and she quickly brought Zhen Wushuang to the top floor of the Jodi Pavilion, and said congratulations, sir, I have informed the supervisor and he will come right away. Zhen Wushuang sat on a futon and nodded. After a moment, a short fat old man hurried up to catch up. He first checked the token of the 9 emperors' tokens of Zhen Wushuang, then carefully returned the token to Zhen Wushuang, and said, Mr. Bloodsword, may I have any help? Zhen Wushuang turned his hands from the ring of Chenkuan, took out a broken purple gold crown, and said lightly, thank you for sending me something. This crown seems to be worn by the 3 princes who worship the kingdom of God. The obese old man was shocked. As the supervisor of the Jodi Pavilion of the Tara ruins, his eyesight was naturally good, and he recognized it at a glance. This broken purple gold crown was once worn by the 3 princes of the kingdom of God. How could this crown appear in the hands of this person? The obese old man was puzzled in his heart, but he dared not ask more, and replied, Sir, where are you going? You can take this purple gold crown to the virtual windstar domain, the Shanyang astral realm, the hand of a water which dominated. Zhen Wushuang said. Is the virtual windstar field? Your Excellency, the virtual windstar field is located at the edge of the universe, very far away from here, if it is. The obese old man said with a little embarrassment. Can't you send it over? Zhen Wushuang said lightly before he finished. This. The obese old man hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. Sir, it can be delivered, but it will be extremely expensive, requiring 200,000 source rocks of the universe. After that, the obese old man bowed his head and stopped watching Zhen Shuang. He didn't look down on Zhen Wushuang's meaning, but it was a 200,000 cosmic source stone, which is an astronomical number for most ultimate masters. Zhen Wushuang only dominated the 4th grade. He didn't think that Zhen Wushuang could have what means has so many universe source stones. When will it start? Zhen Wushuang took out a ring from the sky. The obese old man heard a word of it, and after taking up Chen Kun's ring to investigate, the next moment his body was shocked. I can arrange it immediately, the obese old man linked. Well, as soon as possible. Zhen Wushuang nodded his head, then lowered his brim and walked out of Jodi Pavilion. For him, the current source of the universe is just a number. In the 2nd layer of the tail ruins, the cosmic source stone he got was at least nearly 100 million, which does not include those magic drugs and materials. If they were added together and converted into the cosmic source stone, it would be an astronomical number, The 200,000 source rocks of the universe, now Jian Wushuang has completely ignored. Hope they like this gift. Jian Wushuang's face hidden under the hood smiled. After a while, Jian Wushuang came to the two kings of Zhoujian. Is everything done? Zhu Jiawang said. Well. Jian Wushuang nodded. Okay, let's go. With a big wave from King Zhujia's hand, a dark spacecraft appeared in front of the three, and then rose in the wind, turning into a behemoth that struck the sky in the blink of an eye. King Zhouzai and Qingfeng looked at each other. The three swordsmen stepped on their feet and immediately rose into the sky and entered the spacecraft. Rumble tilde. Immediately, the spacecraft roared, accelerated rapidly, and sprinted out. Within a few moments, the universe turned into a small black spot and completely disappeared into this starry sky. Time passed slowly, and 300 years passed in a blink of an eye. One day, at the entrance of the Tail Ruins, a banner super fleet with the word 2 virtual came across the starry sky, and suddenly entered the entrance of the Tail Ruins, passing without any reason at all. Suddenly, at the entrance of the Tail Ruins, a group of people turned over, and the ultimate master of countless street vendors hurried to avoid. However, Hasn't waited for them to roar, as if they were holding their throats by an invisible big hand. They are all trembling. I saw a row of top ultimate dominators, rushing out of this fleet, standing under the huge cosmic boat with the 2 empty flag, standing respectfully. Immediately afterwards, I saw the largest cosmic boat, the hatch of which slowly opened, and a man wearing a white coat with the word 2 virtual sewn with fine gold thread on the back was a white old man. Step by step at the door. The only difference between this old man's dress and that of the Qingshu god's son is that a golden wisteria flower is embroidered on his left chest. As soon as the old man got off the cosmic boat, an instant of powerful breath suddenly came to the audience, and the countless ultimate dominators present all covered the cold, only to feel the blood was frozen. Here, this is the 7th hall of the Taishu Temple. The deputy hall owner of the 7th hall, Bai Fu Supreme. Suddenly, among the crowd, the ultimate master changed his face and whispered. Chapter 4193. Second more. Extreme in person. This is the Supreme come. The presence of many ultimate dominators set off a stormy sea. Bai Fu Supreme expressionless, glanced at the ultimate domination, and said indifferently, "Find." All of a sudden, respectfully the lords of the Taishu Temple standing in front of him should suddenly divide up a large part and blast towards the ruins of Tai Luo. A small part is left, towards the ultimate master nearby. Have you seen this man? The Taishu shrine dominated the indifferent expression, holding a large shovel in the palm of his hand, and kept asking the ultimate master who was present coldly. The figure in the mirror is not someone else, it is a sword unparalleled. Never seen it. Do not know. The ultimate master at the scene shook his head. However, there were also people who saw the sword unparalleled and immediately recognized it. Well, isn't this person a little guy who came with King Zhoulong 1,000 years ago? Yes, I also remember this person, and I was quite impressed, because at the time when they were here, I still mocked 2 sentences and said that this person is a 4th level master and is this Taro ruins are looking for death. Isn't this person already in the Taro ruins? As soon as these words came to an end, many of the top-level ultimate masters of the Taishu Temple were blindfolded. After a while, the Taishu Temple, who had previously entered the ruins of Tai Luo, was dominated by them, and rushed out of it, standing in front of Bai Fu. Master Uyghur, the figure is not found inside. Sir, I heard people say that King Zhouzai has left the ruins of Tai Luo, and the man who chased after His Highness the Son of God must have also left. Lord Bai Fu nodded faintly when he heard the words, looked at the people who had said that he had seen Jian Wushuang before, and said, "Take it away." Yes. Suddenly, in a burst of exclamation, those who said they knew Jian Wushuang were forcibly taken away by the ultimate dominator of Taishu Temple. Not long after, the fleet of Taishu Temple from the starry sky slowly turned around and drove quickly in one direction. That direction points to the ground, it is the Palace of Life. It was not until the fleet of the Taishu Temple completely left that everyone was relieved. On the top floor of Jodi Pavilion, the obese old man stood in front of the railing and looked at the departing fleet of Taishu Temple with a complex expression. Their news has always been well informed, naturally knowing that His Royal Highness the Taishu Temple, hunting down a 4th-level master in the Tara ruins, the result is unknown. The whereabouts of the Taishu Temple God is unknown. The broken crown of the 3 princes of the Kingdom of God. The 2 places are associated together, and the obese old man suddenly feels a little confused. This person is the Tianjiao on my 9 emperors list. If he is in trouble. No, this matter should be reported to that adult. The obese old man made a good decision and hurried down the stairs. In the vast universe, a dark spacecraft is flying fast. The Bone Starfish domain is in front. After the Bone Starfish shuttles the universe channel, we are close to the shrine. In the spacecraft cabin, King Zhoujia, Jian Wushuang, and Qingfeng looking through the spacecraft's mystic mirror, looking at the universe and smiling slightly. It's been nearly 800 years since they left the Tara ruins, and they have constantly shuttled through the cosmic passage, and they are getting closer and closer to the Temple of Life. Speaking of this trip to the Tara ruins, all the troubles were caused by the gods of Chiba. If they had left the team without authorization at the beginning, when we were in Fengyang Gorge, our strength was drastically reduced and we were chased and killed. Why is there all that? If they had worked together with us at the time, when we were in Fengyang Canyon, we could rely on our strength to take the supreme potion that was safe and sound. Qingfeng Shenhu said with emotion. King Zhoujia and Jian Wushuang heard the words, smiled and did not speak. For Jian Wushuang, if there was no Qing Shuzi chasing and killing at the beginning, I am afraid that he would not accidentally hit and enter the 2nd floor of the Tara ruins, so as to obtain the cosmic treasures such as the Tara magic sword and the Tara sword. King of the 9th calamity, if you talk about the harvest this time, among the 3 of us, you got the supreme divine medicine, but the biggest gain, after you go back, you have to give me a good return and sword unparalleled. Qingfeng Shenhu intentionally acid jokes. Ha ha ha, why was King Zhoujia a mean person? Rest assured, I will definitely report when I return. Seeing that the Temple of Life was getting closer, King Zhoujia was in a good mood, and joked with a rare smile. As he spoke, he tilted his head to the side, taking a meaningful look at Jian Wushuang. If he hadn't seen the battle between Jian Wushuang and the South King and the 3 princes of the town, he really thought he was the biggest winner of the trip, but it was the battle that he saw, not showing the mountains. Jian Wushuang, the absolute gain is greater than he. Just a magical power that resembles a mind of the Kingdom of God has surpassed all the gains of his Taro ruins. However, with regard to these, he and Jian Wushuang were quite tacit and didn't talk about it. Even the details of the battle, when Qingfeng asked, they were vaguely obscured. The King of 9 Kings understands that everyone in this world has their own secrets. Since Jian Wushuang did not take the initiative to say, he would naturally not ask more. Anyway, for him, in fact, the supreme magic potion is the best opportunity for him. As for what chance of Jian Wushuang got, what does it have to do with him? The 3 chat from time to time, sometimes with their eyes closed, and time flies fast. In the blink of an eye, nearly 100 years have passed, and the surrounding universe is finally bustling and lively. From time to time, you can see various spacecraft passing by. The Palace of Life is finally here. Jian Wushuang slowly opened her eyes. Their current position can already see the farthest place through the space of the cosmic boat, which belongs to the Kingdom of God controlled by the Palace of Life. I haven't seen you in such a long time, and I don't know how Shuang'er is now. Thinking of the flower like frost, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but smile slightly and said to himself silently, after returning to the Temple of Life, the next step is for me to break through the 5th level master. Jian Wushuang thought again, thinking again. Today, in fact, his realm has become unimportant. Whether it is the strength of his divine power or the understanding of the laws of the universe, he has reached the level of dominating the realm, the highest level. Breaking through the 5th level will not be too difficult for Jian Wushuang in front of him. It is nothing more than integrating the 8th rule. Although the rules become more difficult to merge, Jian Wushuang has absolute confidence in himself. Chapter 4194. The first is more. The reason why Jian Wushuang wanted to go back to break through the 5th rank is because once he breaks through the 5th rank, not only does his divine power increase again, but more importantly, maybe he can use Tai Luo at that time. 1/1,000,000th power of the Excalibur. At that time, even in the face of the King of Nine Calamities, a level higher than his dominion, he is confident that he will truly let go of the battle. Well, if there is a breakthrough at that time, maybe we have to use the power of Wu Daohe. Jen Wu's eyes kept thinking of the Han spirit who realized Hanoi, and his face was a bit irresistible. Presumably Lord Helaying, when I see myself again, my expression will be wonderful, right? At this moment, the three kings of Zhoujia, Jen Wushuang, and Qingfeng Shunhu did not speak, and each of them was somewhat eager to return home. Rumble. The time of Yajazi passed, and the three swordsmen Wushan finally reached the front of the cosmic passage leading to the Temple of Life. Who's coming? The two masters in charge of the door, seeing the approaching spacecraft, were suddenly tense, and sang loudly. It's me. King Nine Calm replied lightly. Immediately, the three men descended from the spacecraft. See King Nine Calamities. Seeing this, the two goalkeepers suddenly felt relieved, and then arched their hands, and said, Master Nine Calamities, Supreme Bloodwave, Great Axe Supreme, and Supreme Gav have received your summons. We are waiting here. As soon as you arrive, let me take you to the Supreme Hall. Oh, so urgent. King Zhoujia, Jen Wushuang, and Qingfeng Shunhu heard the words and couldn't help but glance at each other, and they were a little confused about each other. Theoretically, even if they were asked to report the situation of the ruins, it would not be so urgent. Did something happen? Zhu Jiaowang frowned. The two gatekeepers heard the words, hesitated in their eyes, and finally said softly, Master Huizhou Zhoujiao Wang, 100 years ago, a distinguished guest came to your door and is waiting for you in the Supreme Temple. What noble guest? A look of dissatisfaction arose on King Nine Calamities' face, and he asked again. The two masters took a deep breath and heard the words returning solemnly, It's the person who is too vain temple. Too much shrine. Suddenly, the faces of King Zhoujia and Qingfeng looked slightly changed, and they looked at Xiongjian Wushuang in unison. Jian Wushuang heard his face expressionless, and asked lightly, Is this for me? The two masters heard the words and nodded bitterly with a smile, and said, Yes. Then go and see them, what is going on? Jian Wushuang sneered in his heart. He had long anticipated that people from the temple that was too virtual would come to him. Unexpectedly, this person who is too virtual temple not only came to him, but also came directly to the Temple of Life. However, Jian Wushuang didn't panic in his heart. This is the Temple of Life. Forgive those who are too virtual temple, and dare not do anything extraordinary. 3 adults, let's take a message now and take you to the Supreme Temple. The two masters asked. The three kings of Zhoujia nodded and nodded, showing a firm smile towards Jian Wushuang, as if to say, Rest assured that everything is with us. A moment later, the three men came to the Supreme Temple under the leadership of the two masters. Inside the Supreme Temple, Gavra Supreme sits in the first place, Bloodwave Supreme and Giant Axe Supreme are on both sides. Under the three of them, an old man wearing too much hair and white hair, sitting cross-legged, holding a teacup and drinking tea lightly. This person is impressively the Taishu Temple, the 7th Temple, and the Vice Hall Lord by Fu Supreme. Speaking of which, the old man came to the Temple of Life, and thanked 3 Taoists for their hospitality. Bai Fu Supreme put down his teacup and smiled slightly. Bai Fu, this tea is finished, shouldn't you go? Shuebo Supreme's face was not very good-looking. No hurry, the old man and others haven't arrived yet, said Supreme Master Bai Fu, shaking his head and shaking his head. After a pause, Bai Fu Supreme continued to say, Relax, after your husband investigates the matter clearly, you will naturally leave, and never stay more. This life temple, how can we be two virtual temple, you? Bloodwave Supreme heard an angry voice. Where is this Bai Fu Supreme when their life shrine? Come whenever you want. Want to go? He was about to have an attack, and when he saw Supreme Gap sitting in the first place, he said lightly, Bloodwaves, the visitor is a guest, it must not be rude. The great axe beside him shook his head slightly towards him. The blood wave was supremely visible, and there was a sudden cloudiness on his face, and finally he grunted coldly and stopped talking. Seeing this, Bai Fu Supreme, the corners of his mouth could not help but evoke slightly a look of perseverance. Although his strength is far inferior to Bloodwave Supreme, but this time he came to represent the temple of Taishu. He believes that Bloodwave Supreme is afraid to take him. Flip-flop. At this moment, there was a rush of footsteps outside the door, and then, a master who was responsible for guarding the temple hurriedly came in, arching, "Oblique Gav, Supreme Blood, Supreme Axe, Jojia, the three kings have returned and are waiting for the announcement outside the temple." As soon as this voice fell, the Bloodwave Supreme and the Giant Axe Supreme shrank their pupils, and the white floating Supreme stood up with a smile on his face. Ha ha ha, the old man waited for 100 years, and finally came. "Let them come in." Supreme Gav nodded blandly. Yes. The master retreated. It didn't take long for Jian Wushuang to see the three of them, walking slowly from outside the hall. King Jojia stood in the middle, Jian Wushuang and Qing Feng stood on both sides, and all three looked expressionless. Extreme Gav, Extreme Bloodwave, Extreme Axe. The three arched slightly. "Well, King Nine Calamities, Qing Feng, you sit down first." Gafu Supreme nodded. Then he looked at Jian Wushuang, and said lightly, "Sword Wushuang, this is the deputy main hall of the 7th temple of the Taishu Temple, Bai Fu Supreme. This time I called you over because this Bai Fu Supreme had something to ask. Later Bai Fu Supreme asked you. You must not have any concealment, do you understand?" "Understand." Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and immediately looked to Bai Fu Supreme, Archaic Archery, Sword Wushuang, saw Bai Fu Supreme. "You are Jian Wushuang?" The old man asked you, in the ruins of Tai Luo, did you have a conflict with the Qingshu of our Taishu temple? Bai Fu Supreme narrowed his eyes, and he was also welcome. "Open the door directly to the mountain road." "That's right." Jian Wushuang nodded calmly. The matter between him and Qing Shuzi is not secret. At the beginning, many people saw the scene of Qing Shuzi pursuing and killing him in the ruins of Tai Luo. Therefore, he did not intend to deny it. Chapter 4195. Second more. Just admit it. Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, a flash of cold mang flashed in his eyes, and sneered, "Sword unparalleled, the old man asks you again, how did you get rid of our Qingshu son?" "Qingshu son, now where is it?" While talking, Bai Fu's supreme eyes oppressed, as if Jian Wushuang's answer was wrong, he dropped the thunder of anger. "At the time, the Qingshu god's son chased me, and I was forced to flee to a special place in the ruins of Tai Luo. There, I got rid of the Qingshu god's son. As for where he is now, I have no way of knowing," Jian Wushuang faint said. "A bullshit." Bai Fu Supreme did not wait for Jian Wushuang to finish speaking, and his voice snapped sharply, yelling, "Sword Wushuang, the old man advises you to be more honest, don't be careful in front of the old man." Jian Wushuang saw this, and the light of the eyes could not help falling. From the moment he stepped into the Supreme Temple, this Bai Fu Supreme has not given him a good look, and his words are full of scolding and oppression. How can he be bullied if he has no sword? Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang expression calmly said, "Extreme Bai Fu, what I said is true and false, you can check it yourself." "Not honest yet." Bai Fu Zhang retorted with a smirk and sarcastically said, "Jian Wushuang, since you said that you were in a secret place and got rid of the hunting of our young god, then you would talk about that secret. Where is the land in the ruins of Tai Luo?" After that, Bai Fu Extreme stared at Jian Wushuang tightly. Jian Wushuang heard a silence and said slowly, "I forgot." "Forgot? Ha 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 ha, what a forgotten one." Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, exaggerated a sarcastic radian from the corner of his mouth, and laughed loudly. This scene fell in the eyes of everyone, and everyone's faces became not so good. Even Gava Supreme, who had been keeping his eyes closed, frowned slightly. "Bai Fu, you have already asked all the questions, now is it time to leave?" Bloodwave Supreme pressed the air of fire. Originally, he let Bai Fu Supreme enter the Temple of Life. It can be said that he gave the huge face of the Taishu Temple, but in the end, this Bai Fu Supreme was so ignorant. What did he do in the Supreme Temple with a little scruples? Jian Wushuang as his favorite junior, this white floating Supreme move against Jian Wushuang is to scold and coerce. It is tantamount to hitting the Bloodwave Supreme face. Not urgent. Bai Fu Supreme shook his head and sneered and said, "Jian Wushuang, since you are toasting and not eating and drinking, Then the old husband will take you back to the Taishu temple, and then question slowly. After that, Bai Fu Supreme turned to look at the three of Bloodwave Supreme, and said aloud, 3, it seems that you, the disciples of the shrine, don't plan to tell the husband well. In this case, let the husband he brought it back to the Taishu temple and asked him slowly, what do you think? Alas! The words fell. King Zhoujia and Qingfeng stood up and instantly stood up, staring at Bai Fu Supreme. Do you dare? Wang Senhan from Zhouzai started, his eyes were extremely cold. You are the king of 9 calamities. Why, outsiders say that you can compare to the Supreme, you really think you are the Supreme? You deserve to be arrogant in front of the husband. Bai Fu Zhang looked at the king of 9 calamities with a disdainful look and dismissed her. He didn't notice that the Supreme Lord Gav had opened his eyes. The Supreme Bloodwave and the Great Axe were extremely cold. However, even if he noticed, it is estimated that he would not take it seriously. The Temple of Life, as the base of the special life of the vast universe, is naturally good, but the temple is not too bad, or even stronger. The Taishu Temple was founded by the Taishu Emperor. There are 7 main halls under the seat. Each of the 7 main halls is the supreme top power. Below the 7 main halls, there are 7 deputy main halls. Is supreme cultivation. He is the Supreme Lord Bai, who is the Taishu Temple, the 7th hall, and the Vice Lord. He is confident that although he is superior to him, such as Supreme Gav, Supreme Blood, etc., he does not dare to offend him. After all, he will care about the 2 virtual temple behind him. But at this time, bold. What kind of thing are you, dare to be a person in my life shrine? Bloodwave Supreme was angry. Bai Fu, who originally let you enter the life shrine to ask Jian Wushuang, has already given you, and the face behind the temple is too big, and now you have to go in, and want to bring people from my temple? Where are you here? I tell you, even if your Qingshu god's son died in the hands of my disciples in the temple, he can only blame him for his inferior strength, blame it for himself, understand? Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, his face could not help but change slightly. However, instead of replying, he looked at Gavel Supreme, and he knew that the only person who could really make up his mind here was the Gavulum, not the Great Axe. He first arched his hand towards the Supreme Lord, and then said in a triumph, You Supreme Lord, you are the head of the 5 chief Supreme Leaders in the Palace of Life. You are responsible for directing the Palace of Life for the Lord of the Palace, presumably not like blood. Is that impulsive like Bo Jizuan? The sword is unparalleled, but the 4th grade is the master. For me, it's not much different from the ants. Presumably you won't do it for him, so we will be against us. We are 2 virtual temple, right? After speaking, he added a smile and added, Yes, the Qingshu god's son is a lover of the Lord of the 1st hall of our Lord, Supreme Governance. The relationship between them is very powerful. You must think clearly. He heard that his expression did not have any emotional changes. He raised his eyelids and said indifferently, Are you threatening this seat? Bai Fu Jizun heard that his pupils shrunk somehow. He suddenly felt a little stunned in his heart, and a kind of unpleasant premonition. He stiffened his head and said, Extreme Gav, how dare I threaten you, just to tell you about the powerful relationship. After all, a 4th-level master dominates. Why should he influence the shrine and our Taishu shrine for him? Relationship. Supreme Gav, I advise you to think twice. After hearing the word thinking, Supreme Gav suddenly smiled slightly on that old face. He playfully looked to Bai Fu Supreme, saying, Did you know that even if you are the 1st master of the Bingyu, you never dare to say thinking in front of this seat, you are insignificant. The deputy chief, think twice about this seat. Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, his face changed, and then he suddenly remembered that the Supreme, who was sitting in front of himself, was the oldest senior in the universe, and his strength was already unpredictable. He quickly explained, Extreme Gav, I didn't mean that. After waiting for him to speak, Supreme Gav waved. Chapter 4196. 3 more arrived today. Bai Fu, this seat allows you to enter the shrine to ask my disciples. This is a ritual. Since you don't speak rituals, this seat doesn't need to be a ritual. My seat now gives you 3 seconds, get out of here. Galf Supreme, you. Bai Fu Supreme saw this, His face finally changed, and he wanted to speak again. Bloodwave, how do you know what to do next? Where would Gafu Supreme listen? He looked indifferently to the Bloodwave Supreme beside him. The Baifu Supreme was nothing but a common Supreme, and it was not enough for him to shoot. To the point. Understand? Bloodwave Supreme grinned, and his face was endlessly cold. He had been fed up with this Baifu Supreme. If it wasn't for Gafu Supreme who didn't say anything to let him do it, he would have slapped Baifu Supreme with a slap. And now, the opportunity has finally arrived. He got up and stepped down towards Baifu Supreme. Bloodwave, what do you want to do? After 100,000 years, it will be the grand ceremony of the universe. At that time, both the Temple of Life and our Taishu Temple will participate. There was a terror on Baifu Supreme's face. Bloodwave Supreme is a top Supreme, and his strength is far from his. Don't wait for him to finish roll. Bloodwave Supreme's eyes suddenly opened, bursting into drink. Next moment, he raised his hand directly, and slapped him severely on Baifu Supreme's face. Suddenly, a majestic horror reached the extreme of the supreme divine power, rushing out of his hands like mountains and rivers, and actually directly slap Baifuzuan out of the Temple of Life. What deputy palace master, but stupid, but also have a face come to my life shrine to be important. Bloodwave Supreme retracted his hand and shook his head in disdain. Immediately, he looked at Jian Wushuang. His expression was soothing, and in his place was a soft smile. He comforted and said, "Little guy, good job." Jian Wushuang also smiled back. In fact, since he stepped into the Supreme Shrine, he has not worried about his comfort. This is his trust in the Supreme of Bloodwave, and also the trust in the Temple of Life. Well, you three, tell me about going to the ruins of Tai Luo this time. Shui Buozhi respected Xin Xin and returned to his seat, and said with his palm, "Yes." King Zhoujia, Jian Wushuang and Qingfeng Shunhu looked at each other and began to talk slowly. A few hours later, the sword unparalleled, the king of 9 robbers, and the priest of Qingfeng stood out from the Supreme Temple. Jian Wushuang, where do you plan to go next? King Zhoujia stepped in and asked. It should be a way to break through to the 5th level. Jian Wushuang replied. The king of the 9 kings nodded his head and said with emotion, I should also start to break through the Supreme. I originally wanted to wait for you to break through the Ultimate Master and fight with you. Now it seems that there is no chance. King 9 Robbers benefited a lot from the visit of Tai Luo's ruins. He had a hunch in his heart. It is estimated that this breakthrough is no less than 10. He has dominated the realm of the ultimate, staying too long, has always lacked an opportunity to break through the Supreme. Now, this opportunity has finally arrived. Let's talk when you break the Supreme. Jian Wushuang smiled lightly. Haha, Jian Wushuang, then wait and see, the day when we meet again is the time of my Supreme. Zhu Jiewang Shuanglang laughed loudly, showing endless pride. 2. Take a step first. The next moment, the king of Zhouzai soared into the sky and disappeared into the sky. Qingfeng looks great, we'll see you in the future. Jian Wushuang arched his hands towards Qingfeng, stepped into the same footsteps, and turned away quickly. Qingfeng Shunhu stayed alone and sighed for a long time. The king of 9 kings seems to be breaking through the Supreme, and Jian Wushuang's future is also promising. Only himself, his talent has come to an end. It is estimated that in this life, he will ultimately dominate the realm. Nothing but contentment. Shaking his head, Qingfeng Shunhu also left. At the same time, not far from the gate of Life Shrine, an old man with white hair, a little embarrassed, climbed from the ground. Damn everyone in the Temple of Life. His expression was gloomy to the extreme, but a palm print condensed by divine power on his right face appeared his gloomy complexion. Well, after 100,000 years, it will be the grand ceremony of the nations. At that time, Supreme Blood, Supreme Gav, and the sword unparalleled, you are waiting to bear the anger of our Temple of Two Virtual. Baifu Supreme turned his head, glanced viciously at the Temple of Life, then turned his right hand, and a spacecraft appeared. He drove the spacecraft toward the distance. The Temple of Life, the 6th mountain, by a small lake. A beautiful woman in plain clothes, Her eyes closed slightly, sitting cross-legged by the lake to practice. She frowned slightly, her whole body shone, her breath exuded, and she was the 4th grade master. Suddenly, with both hands, she gently took her waist from behind her and hugged her, and immediately, a slightly funny magnetic voice sounded in her ear. "Shuang, I haven't seen you in this long time, you have improved again." Lung Rushuang opened his eyes slowly without hearing the words, and he replied softly, "Fu Jun, you are still on this journey to the ruins smoothly?" "It goes well naturally." Jian Wushuang smiled, and turned cold as frost. He looked at Lung Rushuang's beautiful face with a bit of worry, even if it was his state of mind that never changed for years. "Fu Jun, I promised you to return home safely before you left. You see, Fu Jun didn't lie to you." Jian Wushuang reached out his hand, smiled on the cold frosty nose, and spoiled it. "Fu Jun, take me with you next time." Lung Rushuang called out gently, reached out and gently held the sword Wushuang. His head was buried in the sword Wushuang's arms. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and stretched out his hands to gently touch the frosty head. His heart could not help but warm. Time flies, 10 years have passed. The Temple of Life in the 6th mountain, inside the manor of the sword unparalleled. "It's time to try and see." Jian Wushuang's eyes slowly opened, and a sharpness reached the extreme, and suddenly passed by his eyes. In this 10-year period, Jian Wushuang finally reached his peak state. It can be said that now, he has entered the threshold of 5th level with half of his feet. The only thing missing is the integration of the 8th rule. And the integration of the 8th rule is not too difficult for the current Jian Wushuang. This time to break through the realm is the fastest time ever since he stepped into the dominating level. However, this is also the most reliable one for Jian Wushuang. Chapter 4197. The first is more. In the 2nd floor of the Tara ruins, the chance he got was too great. After the Tara sword spirit took him away, in order to improve his strength, those magic drugs are like swords without money. The belly is stuffed, and until now, there is a lot of medicinal power in Jian Wushuang's body. These magic drugs are those that increase the strength of Jian Wushuang's divine power, and those who improve Jian Wushuang's understanding of the laws of the universe, but most of the magic drugs are to promote the fusion of Jian Wushuang's 8th rule. As long as the digestive properties of the divine medicine in the divine body are combined with the power of Wu Daohe, I should break through the 5th level and dominate. It should not take long. Jian Wushuang made a decision in his heart, and then said hello to Lung Rushuang. The figure swept away, striding toward Wudao River. Wudao River, riverside location. An old man with a short stature and 2 long beards on his mouth is lying on a soft bed leaning back and forth. Next to him, a female disciple of the Palace of Life is smirking and pinching his shoulders. "Back. Master He Ling, do you still like the blood jade coral I sent?" The female disciple of the Temple of Life said with a smile. I can barely get through," He Ling said, waving his hand at will. At this moment, he was lying with his golden sword, his eyes narrowed, and his expression was enjoyable. Where else was the miserable look of being half-bullied by Jian Wushuang before? Then, "Lord He Ling, can I enter Han Dao now to enlighten the law?" The female disciple was affirmed by He Ling, and was immediately excited, and asked with a look of excitement. "For you to be so clever and sensible, you can help me for another 3 days. You will be comfortable with me, and you will naturally be able to go in," said Master He Ling leisurely. "Yes." Suddenly, the female disciple of the Temple of Life shook hands more and more quickly. "Comfortable." He Ling sighed in his heart. This is the correct way for him to open his master. What kind of ghost operation was that guy named Jian Wushuang 1,000 years ago? The period of repression by Jian Wushuang was simply unbearable. In his long life, he was the greatest shame. Fortunately, the sword Wushuang, who killed Chen Dao, heard that he was dispatched out. It is estimated that he will not return in a short time. Thinking of this, He Ling smiled. If he could, he would never want to see Jian Wushuang again in his life. At this time. "Well, He Ling, you will enjoy it." A strange voice revealed a familiar voice, which suddenly sounded in He Ling's ear. Suddenly, He Ling froze all over. He looked back blankly, and saw a figure that he never wanted to see again in his life, staring at him with a smile in his mouth. The sword unparalleled to kill the 1,000 sword. Suddenly, He Ling climbed up from the soft bed with both hands and feet, screamed in horror, and then jumped into Wu Dao River. What's going on? The female disciple of Life Temple looked stunned. In the Temple of Life, the highly respected Lord Helaying was even frightened to flee. She looked back abruptly, and saw a young man with black hair and black, standing with a smile on the edge of the river. Jian Wushuang? The female disciple frowned. Jian Wushuang has a good reputation in the Temple of Life. At the beginning, the battle with the king of Zhujie in the Proving Ground was a famous Zhenjing temple. Most of the disciples in the Temple of Life knew Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly towards her, then stepped on it, and immediately shot into Wu Dao River. Wu Daohe is the deepest. He Ling hugged his waist and hid behind a boulder. He slightly stretched his head. A pair of small triangular eyes murmured and looked around. Slap. Suddenly, he was patted on the shoulder. Immediately, the voice that sounded like a nightmare to him, with a joke, rang again in his ear. Master Helaying, what are you looking at? He Ling stiffened, shivered, and looked back stiffly. Sure enough, the figure was standing quietly behind him. Jiang Wushuang, you have no end? What do you want to do this time? He Ling's face changed, and he stretched out his short hand, opened the hand with Jian Wushuang on his shoulder, and couldn't hold back. His heart roared angrily. Jian Wushuang did not care, smiled slightly, and replied, "This is not to trouble Lord Helaying again, help me break through." What? Break through? Didn't you just break through? Why did you break through? He Ling stared at him with an unbelievable glance at Jian Wushuang, then stepped forward, and immediately slipped forward. No, this guy is coming to squeeze me again, he has to leave here to avoid the limelight first. The thoughts in He Ling's head turned sharply, and he immediately made up his mind to avoid the limelight. Running and running, he suddenly found that he seemed to be stepping back. Well, what's going on? He Ling was puzzled, and then he felt that his shoulder was caught by a big hand. Come on, Lord He Ling. A loud laugh sounded behind him, and the next moment, he heard Jian Wushuang smiling and said, "Suppression." Suddenly, a stone stele with repressive power descended from the sky, crushing him severely. Ah! Damn swords matchless! He Ling shouted miserably, and then turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang, shaking with vigor. Jian Wushuang, are you a devil? Master He Ling, I promise, this is the last time. Jian Wushuang arched his hand at him with a smile, then sat down slowly, closing his eyes. A swordman cut it, and immediately cut the river spirit into 2 pieces. A strong regular breath permeated. Jian Wushuang's breakthrough began. In the depths of the universe, the stars are shining, and the stars are shining. The top forces stand here, forming a posture of juxtaposition. The Taishu star field is located in the deep central position of the universe. As the name implies, you can know that this Taishu star field belongs to the Taishu temple. At this moment, there are 7 white temples built in a separate space in Taishu star field. Each of these 7 white temples is extremely solemn and sacred, with its own badge. The 7th temple is a golden wisteria flower. The 7th temple is so towering. A long stone ladder is straight up. This stone ladder is not spacious. On the contrary, it is very narrow and full of oppression. See Lord of the Vice Hall. The 2 ultimate masters responsible for guarding the stone ladder, holding swords and shields, saluted to an old man with white hair. Can the Lord be in the main hall? Bai Fuzuan asked with a gloomy expression covering his right face. The slap of the supreme bloodwave is formed by the aggregation of supreme divine power, which is so easy to eliminate. Return to the Deputy Hall Master. Lord Hall Master has returned from the ancient sky and is waiting for you in the hall. 2 ultimate masters returned. Chapter 4198. Second more. Okay. Bai Fu Supreme nodded his head, without using his divine power, and stepped down the stone ladder step by step. After a moment, Bai Fu Supreme walked to the top of the stone ladder, where a strange red attic was built. Opening the door of the loft, there was no light in the spacious loft. A skinny old man was sitting cross-legged in the first place in the loft, with most of his face hidden in the darkness. The lord of the palace. Bai Fu supremely saluted. "Huh? Bai Fu, what's wrong with your face?" A husky voice came from the skinny old man's mouth. Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, a flash of humiliation flashed in his eyes, and gritted his teeth, saying, "The Temple Master, all this is from the Blood Wave Supreme of the Temple of Life." Blood Wave. The skinny old man gave a light sigh, and was slightly surprised. "Blood Wave, I know, he is a good person in the Supreme, how can he act on you? Did you offend him?" Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, and suddenly a spite of resentment appeared on his face, and he said, "Dear Lord, you don't know. The attitude of the people in the Temple of Life is really arrogant, and we don't put our two virtual temple in our eyes." Suddenly, Bai Fu Supreme said something about what he experienced in the Temple of Life. How arrogant and embarrassing the Palace of Life in his mouth is, it is fundamentally different from actual experience. The skinny old man listened silently, without a reply. After Bai Fu Supreme said, he shook his head and said, "Okay, I know about this, you can step back." Bai Fu Zuan heard anxious on his face, and quickly asked, "Dear Lord, can we just forget it?" Before he finished speaking, the skinny old man narrowed his eyes and interrupted, "I said I knew, did you not hear me clearly?" When Bai Fu Supreme heard his words silent, he arched and said, "Then Bai Fu will retreat first." After that, Bai Fu Supreme turned and walked out of the hall step by step. It's just that his face suddenly turned more gloomy and violent after turning around. A moment later, the attic fell into silence. The skinny old man raised his head, and suddenly sighed into a dark void, sighing, "The Lord of the Ice Palace, what shall we do next?" Alas! I saw a twist in the void, a 7 to 8-year-old silver-haired child, the figure condensed out of thin air. The child was about 7 or 8 years old and had red lips and white teeth. However, he had strangely growing silver-haired silver eyebrows, and his eyes showed maturity that did not meet his age. No one would have imagined that this handsome and cute child was the owner of the first temple of the Taishu Shrine, Bingyu Supreme. This white floating speech, let us add fuel and vinegar for the time being, not to mention that the Supreme Lord of the Life Shrine is an ancient figure of the same period as the Lord Emperor. Why did he dare to offend? He can come back alive, and he has already been lucky. The silver-haired child shook his head with a sneer, and then his eyes fell on the skinny old man's face, and he said, "Ju Kuan, you vice the Lord heard that you chose it. Your vision is not very good this time." The skinny old man sighed softly when he heard the words, and replied, "In addition to adding some oil and vinegar, Bai Fu is actually better." After a pause, the skinny old man turned sharply and continued to ask, "The Lord of the Ice Palace, but Bai Fu is right to say a little bit. Is it true that the matter of the Son of God? Otherwise, what else do you want?" Bingyu Extreme shook his head and said, "The race of the nations is about to be held. It is said that this time, the adult will distribute 10 seats in the universe and choose 10 people. Listening to his preaching, our top priority now is to secure a place for our Taishu temple among the 10 seats. Other things are trivial compared to this." "What? 10 seats?" The skinny old man was startled and disappointed. Last time, did the adult hand out only 7 seats? Why was there so much this time? Bingyu Supreme heard a deep groan and said, "When I was in Shinkongulu, I heard others say that he is like that adult. This time, I will choose 3 ultimate masters with good talents in the universe. So, this time I heard only 3 more seats. Bingao Temple Lord, then the Son of God is dead, we are too empty of the temple. Isn't it uncompetitive for those 3 seats that are ultimately dominated?" The skinny old man thought for a while and frowned. Bingyu Supreme heard a slight smile, and said with a smile, "Rest assured, our God Emperor has already made arrangements for those who will run for the ultimate seat. The Son of God himself is used to substitute." "Oh!" The skinny old man seemed to remember something, and suddenly raised his eyes rose sharply by 3 inches. "Might the Lord Emperor intend to release the prisoner dragon?" Bingyu Supreme heard a mysterious smile and did not answer. At the same time, not only the Taishu Temple, but the top forces in the universe, such as the Great Sun God Kingdom and the Great Foam God Kingdom, all received news of the death of Qianjiao, who was sent to the ruins of Tai Luo. After some investigation, a name called Jiang Wushuang broke into their eyes. Da Fengshan, the Great Prince's house. A young man with a very handsome face wearing a purple python suit and staring up and down, standing in front of a railing. Holding a blacklight mirror in his hand, the picture reflected in the blacklight mirror is the moment when Jiang Wushuang beheaded and killed the three princes. With a sad face on his face, he murmured to himself, "My dear third brother, telling you not to go to the ruins of Tai Luo, you just want to go, now you are all right, you died in the hands of others, why are you don't listen to advice? Why? You obviously should have died in my hands." The young man talked and laughed abruptly. His handsome face was full of pleasure. After a moment, he calmed down and looked down into the Shuangguang mirror. The picture of Jiang Wushuang beheading and killing the three princes, with a smirk, said, "Jiang Wushuang? Good, thank you for helping me to get rid of the third brother, so I decided, to kill you." Huh. The voice fell down. The piece of mysterious mirror was suddenly torn and fragmented. The young man released his hand and raised his eyes to look at the unknown and distant direction, with a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. The Temple of Life, the Fourth Mountain, and the River of Enlightenment. The sword unparalleled to kill Chen Dao. Damn sword unparalleled. Let me go. I'm going to fight you. Jiang Wushuang, are you able to kill me and try again? Huh. A sword flashed. Wu Dao River calmed down. Chapter 4199. The first is more. Sword warriors. Jiang Wushuang, I tell you, you are in a big deal. It's over, you're over. I'm going to sue Gavra Supreme. I want to tell them you crushed me. Sword unparalleled. You are about to be kicked out of the Temple of Life. Ha 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 tilde. Huh. A swordmang split again. Wu Daohe fell into silence again. The disciples of the Life Shrine on the banks of the river beside the river, when they saw this scene, couldn't help laughing. At the beginning, they were quite worried whether Jiang Wushuang would make any trouble by doing this. As a result, when they found that the river spirit was beheaded, not only did it not matter, but the rules in the river became stronger. After that, he went with sword unparalleled. At the bottom of the Dao River, Jian Wu sat cross-legged, closed his eyes tightly, and a strong, full-bodied breath of law entangled him layer by layer, and was absorbed by the sword. In the sword deity's body, the eighth rule of imprint began to appear gradually, and gradually extended at an extremely slow speed. The integration of each rule will be more difficult than once, and time will be longer than once. Jiang Wushuang has already made a long-term retreat. This time, Jiang Wushuang did not devour any Dao fruit that would improve the speed of the fusion rule. At first, Tai Luo Jianling controlled his body. In order to quickly improve his strength, every potion was poured into his stomach like candy. The medicinal properties in the body are too strong, and the impurities in it must be removed first. Dominating the fifth level is to break the penultimate level of the Supreme, so this breakthrough is extremely important. Qi Jian Wushuang must not allow himself to have any medicinal impurities remaining. Time flies, the sea changes. In a blink of an eye, 10,000 years have passed. In this 10,000 years, the Life Shrine has flooded into groups of special creatures, creating legend after story. The story, which belongs to Jiang Wushuang, fades gradually. Enlighten the river spirit in the river, it has already given up scolding, just like a dead body without emotion. Let the sword unparalleled squeeze. The next day, a small whirlpool suddenly appeared on the dark river in Wudao, Hanoi. With the appearance of this small vortex, the water of Wudao River suddenly became boiling, and the rich rules hidden in the river water became chaotic instantly. What happened? Damn! Who is disturbing me to break through? This Wudao River is always good, how could it suddenly become like this? Instantly, countless figures rushed out of Wudao River, suspended in the void. Among them, a tall man with a burly figure was facing the whirlpool. His face complexion was low and he shouted, "Junk! Brother Magic Wind, what's wrong?" Suddenly, a large group of disciples of Life Shrine rushed towards the tall man. This tall, burly man is called Lord of the Wind, and the fifth-level peak is the Master of Life. He entered the Shrine of Life 8,000 years ago. He has a level of creatures of more than 800 times. Among the special lives, the one with the most potential talent. Therefore, he has a lot of prestige in the new batch of disciples of Life Shrine, and he is the first person in the realm of ultimate domination. Someone is in the Wu Dao River, disturbing the rules, said the Lord of the Wind, not so good looking. He was already one step behind, and he wanted to merge the 9th rule and break through to the ultimate level. The result was just now. The emergence of the vortex directly sucked all the rules of Wu Dao from the river, causing him to impact the ultimate. Failure to dominate the realm. He was furious to the extreme at the moment. Who dares to disturb Brother Demon Wind? Who doesn't know, Brother Devil Wind is about to break through the ultimate master, and even come to trouble. The new disciples of the Temple of Life shouted in indignation. Are all of the people in Wu Dao River coming out? Demon Wind Master asked with a dark expression. A new disciple took a glance at the figure standing in the void, and quickly replied, Brother Demon Wind, all the people in the Dao River have come out. Is it? The Demon Wind Master looked down and saw that the vortex in Wu Dao River, like a black hole, sucked out all the regular breath in Wu Dao River, and continued to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. So what is this? Lord of the Wind said with his chin, pointing to the vortex. The disciples of the surrounding Life Shrine looked at each other, and frowned. For nearly 10,000 years, they remember that only they entered Wu Dao He. Brother Demon Wind, I see. There is indeed one other person who hasn't come out in the Wu Dao River. Suddenly, a round-faced disciple shouted. Who is it? Demon Wind Master and others looked at the round-faced disciple one after another. At the same time, the Lord of the Demon Wind made up his mind even more. He must give a good look to those who have disrupted the atmosphere of the rules in the Wu Dao River and hurt him. He is confident that he is an invincible person under the ultimate realm, and the ultimate master in the Palace of Life will never come to this Dao River. The disciple with round face was watched by so many people, he couldn't help feeling timid, wiped the sweat on his forehead, and whispered back, Brother Devil Wind, I remember this in the Dao River, and a fellow named Jian Wushuang is retreating. Sword unparalleled. Everyone heard the words and looked at each other. Frightened, and the wind is dominated by frowns. The name of Jian Wushuang, he has heard that when he first came to the Temple of Life, he had heard many old people in the palace say that how talented Jian Wushuang is and how powerful his combat power is. The 4th level dominates the realm, and the enemy ultimately dominates. However, the Lord of the Magic Wind sneered at it. He didn't believe in any sword saver, he could dominate the final with the strength of the 4th level. In his opinion, Jian Wushuang was demonized, and these were all passed on to him. He also asked the old people in these temples, which sword warrior specifically dominated the battle, and the old people in the life temples are dumb, and can only say in a verbal way, swords Wu Shuang and Ji King robbers battle in the trial ground. Here let the magic wind dominate, this is even more disdainful. Proving ground? That is to suppress the cultivation of two people at the same level, can it be regarded as a battle with the ultimate master? Wait for the sword Wu Shuang to come out, I'd like to be taught. How strong is this rumored the first genius of the shrine? The magic wind dominated Lungheng. Chapter 4200. Second more. In his opinion, Jian Wushuang is only the 4th level master. Even if this breakthrough is successful, he becomes the 5th level master. It will not be his opponent. Time passed slowly, and the vortex grew larger and larger, like a black hole that devoured the stars, and it was terrifying. The Demon Wind Master and others did not leave, but quietly sat on their knees beside the river of Wu Dao River, waiting for Jian Wushuang's exit. The day passed. 2 days have passed. In the blink of an eye, the time passed 2 years. Enlighten the Dao River, at this moment has been surrounded by people, they are full of anger, staring at the turbulent vortex in the Go Dao River. Since the appearance of this vortex, the regular atmosphere in Wu Dao River has become a mess, and as much as possible has been sucked away by this vortex, they have not practiced in this Wu Dao River at all. Therefore, they are now accumulating a belly of fire and want to vent. Rumble tilde. Finally, one day 2 years later, the entire surface of the Wu Dao River began to boil violently, as if boiling water boiled up, and large fists swelled up. Suddenly, it seemed as if there were some terrifying monsters coming out of Wudao River. Jian Wushuang is coming out, Jian Wushuang is finally coming out, it really makes me wait. Apologize. Jian Wushuang must apologize like us. Many new disciples of the Temple of Life shouted on the banks of the Minute River. Suddenly, the demon wind dominated, even under the crowd of stars, and the moon slowly stood up straight, looking at Wu Dao with a gloomy expression. At this moment, Wu Daohe is at the bottom. A huge rock covered with waterweed suddenly shook. Click. This boulder suddenly opened a crack. Click, click, click. Immediately afterwards, the cracks became more and more, and at last a loud noise blew up the boulder completely, exposing one of them sitting cross-legged, the stern figure with black hair and black hair. Fifth grade dominates. Has finally become. A low, indifferent voice came from the mouth of the black figure. Next moment, the figure in black slowly raised his head and opened his eyes. Suddenly, the two gods flashed like lightning in the night, flashing from his eyes. I have become stronger. Wu Jian Wushuang murmured to himself. He could feel that after he digested the magic drug in the body, the abundant divine power would almost burst his body. Wu Jiansu has an illusion. Now, as if he raised his hands and throws his feet, he can squeeze a star and break a galaxy. Master He Ling, thank you again this time. Wu Jiansu looked towards the distance, a pair of unlovable lovers, sitting on the ground paralyzed, smiling with the eyes staring at the river spirit. Don't talk to me, I just want to be quiet. He Ling waved his hands weakly. Wu Jianshuang heard the words and couldn't help but smile. Master He Ling, then you take a break and I will go first. Jian Wushuang arched his hand at him. For 10,000 years, he should go out and have a look. The next moment, Jian Wushuang stepped on his right foot, and the whole man rose into the sky. A golden light rushed out of Godao Hanoi. Sword warriors. He finally came out. Suddenly, countless cold hums sounded. The Lord of the Devil Wind narrowed his eyes immediately, stepped on his feet, and swept towards the sword unparalleled. You are the sword unparalleled. He stood in front of Jian Wushuang, looked at Jian Wushuang up and down, and asked with poor eyes. Jian Wushuang's expression was quite strange. Why did so many people surround themselves as soon as they came out? Although confused, Jian Wushuang didn't think much, politely arched back and said, Is there anything wrong? Did you know that because you are alone, it leads to the chaos of Hanoi's rules, and we can't cultivate anymore? The Lord of the Wind asked. Oh, that's embarrassing. Jian Wushuang replied, probably at the last moment of his breakthrough. He didn't notice the intensity, which led to too much regular breath. After saying that, Jian Wushuang swept away. 10,000 years of retreat made Jian Wushuang helpless. I looked at the back of Jian Wushuang's departure, and the expression of Demon Wind Master suddenly became gloomy. Apologize is over. Magic Wind dominated Han. For his supporters, those new disciples who are new to the Shrine of Life are even more eloquent. Why is there such a rude person in the world? Can't go, you have to leave something at the price. Well, because he is alone, so many of us are unable to practice, can it be easily revealed with an apology? Yes, we must compensate for our losses. Their voices were not concealed deliberately, so they all reached Jian Wushuang's ears. Wu Jian has no footsteps. He frowned, and looked back at the disciples of the New Life Shrine, and said lightly, How do you want to compensate? Suddenly, these disciples of the newly increased Life Shrine couldn't help looking at each other. In my opinion, this sword Wushuang is a soft persimmon. They were all happy, they did not expect that Jian Wushuang would speak so well, and they actually promised compensation. There were still some fearful feelings in Zun Yuan's heart, and all of them disappeared immediately. I want 10,000 universe source stones. I want a magic potion. I want a rule treasure. They shouted in rush. He was dominated by the demon wind, and a slight contempt was raised on his face. It seems that this sword is unparalleled, but that's it. Quiet. He pressed his hand down. Suddenly, the noisy crowd quieted down. The demon wind master nodded, quite satisfied with his prestige. Jian Wushuang, when I first came to this life shrine, I heard people say that you are the first genius of this life shrine, but I don't believe it. I want to teach you. How? Demon Wind dominated, looking at Xiong Zhenshuang, and Pai Xiaoro did not smile. I didn't wait for Jian Wushuang to talk back. He smiled freely and continued, Jian Wushuang, don't say I bully you. Look at the situation where you just broke through the 5th grade, I will let you do it first. How? Jian Wushuang heard the words, and his expression was strange for a while. Now, he is afraid that he is comparable to the Supreme King of the 9 Kings of Calamity, and he dare not say that he will let him do it first. Let him do it. Oh, are you sure? Jian Wushuang blinked. Well, I speak to the magic wind, and I always tell you that one trick is to make you a trick. Is there still a fake? The magic wind dominated and heard a rather unpleasant snort, saying, Sword Wushuang, I promise you that if I lose, all these compensations will be written off, how about it? Wu Zhenshuang heard a faint and then glanced over the faces of the supporters dominated by the magic wind, raising his eyebrows and asking, You all agree with him? Chapter 4201. The first is more. Of course. Brother Devil Wind said what it is. Yes, as long as you can beat Brother Devil Wind, our compensation will be gone. The new Life Shrine disciples who dominated the horse head with the Demon Wind are shouting openly, loyal to the Demon Wind. Wu Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and finally fixed his eyes on the Lord of the Wind, and sighed, Come on. Bring it on. The Demon Wind dominated his breasts, looked unshakably, and looked at Jian Wushuang. Wu Jianshou shook his head, controlled his strength, carefully extended a finger, and headed towards the point where the magic wind dominated. Well, Jian Wushuang, are you looking down on me? Please use your full strength. The Demon Wind Master looked at Jian Wushuang's soft finger, and 2 thick eyebrows were immediately raised, said a little displeasedly. However, he did not wait for him to finish. Tap that finger and gently tap it on the chest dominated by the Demon Wind. Suddenly, an explosion exploded, and the entire 4th mountain seemed to collapse, shaking for a while. Under this finger, the world is eclipsed, a scene of world destruction. The Demon Wind dominated the expression with a terrible expression. Before he could say a word, the whole man fell back fiercely and smashed a deep pit of nearly 100 feet on the ground. He saw that his body was on the verge of collapse, and it was under this finger that he was almost killed. Suddenly, the entire river of Wudao was silent, everyone seemed to be locked in time, opened his mouth and looked at Jian Wushuang dully. This is too fierce, right? Not at the same level. Yang Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had already tried his best to control the power, just because he was afraid that he would kill the magic wind by accident. Do you still want to compensate? Jian Wushuang looked at the people on the riverside and asked. No more. Brother Wushuang, just be happy. The disciples of the newly increased life shrine almost heard Jian Wushuang's question and almost scared their buttocks to slump to the ground. When they talked back, they just felt that their teeth were shaking. Then am I gone? Jian Wushuang said with an eyebrow raised. You walk slowly, walk slowly. Suddenly, these disciples of the newly increased life shrine said with a smile. Wu Jianshou shook his head, stepped on his feet, and suddenly turned into a golden light, disappearing into the sight of everyone. For him, this is just a tiny episode. A moment later, Jian Wushuang broke through the 5th level of domination, and the news of defeating the master of the magic wind with one finger spread to the Temple of Life. Most of those veterans of the life shrine who heard this news smiled a little. For them, it is quite normal for Jian Wushuang to defeat the Lord of the Wind, but it is strange if the sword is defeated by the Lord of the Wind. For those new shrine disciples who have never seen Jian Wushuang means, they are shocked, and there is no contempt for Jian Wushuang, full of fear and awe. When everyone was lamenting Jian Wushuang's talents, Jian Wushuang's mind suddenly received a supreme message and invited him to go to the supreme shrine. Sword unparalleled, come to the supreme temple. It is good. When I heard back a message, Jian's eyes flickered for a while, and the figure that had originally swept towards the 6th mountain turned around and turned towards the supreme temple. Along the way, many masters at the 4th and 5th levels raised their heads and cast envious glances at Jian Wushuang. This is Jian Wushuang, really young. How long did Jian Wushuang come to the Shrine of Life, and he was dominated from the 3rd rank, and broke through to the 5th rank? The speed of promotion is unacceptable. The sword is unparalleled, worthy of the name of the first genius of our life shrine. The Lord of countless life shrines lamented. I was a little bit in my heart, and I was the master of the trial psychology. I couldn't help shaking my head, but at this moment I was extinguishing my thoughts. Sword unparalleled, although still dominated by the 5th level, they have already reached a point where they can hardly look beyond their reach. A moment later, in the awe of the gatekeeper of the Supreme Temple, a sword stepped into the Supreme Temple. In the temple, there is only one who is the Supreme of Blood. He looks at Jian Wushuang with a smile in his mouth. Extreme Blood. Jian Wushuang bowed his head slightly towards him, saluting respectfully. I heard that you broke through the 5th grade and dominated. Bloodwave Supreme noticed the breath of divine power in Jian Wushuang, and he couldn't help flashing a sigh of relief. Oh, good, it is indeed my Bloodwave who picked it. People, following this momentum, you will be a hegemon in the future. He Jiangxin's breakthrough, of course, he is happy, but Jian Wushuang's attitude towards him is where he really feels comforted. He did not see any pride and complacency on Jian Wushuang's body. Jian Wushuang is as calm as he was when he first met, with a humble yet confident and powerful heart. Extreme Blood, do you have anything to do with me? Jian Wushuang asked. Shui's Weibo's expression gradually became calm. Shen said, swords are unparalleled, can you know the ancient road to the sky? Shinkong Ancient Road? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He never heard anyone say, I really don't know, but I would like to ask the Supreme Master of Blood to elaborate. Zun Shuebua Supreme said, Jian Wushuang, you haven't been in the deep space for too long, you don't know the ancient way of the starry sky. It is normal, let me tell you about the ancient way of the starry sky. The Shinkong Ancient Road is divided into two. One is the Supreme Shinkong Ancient Road that only the Supreme can take, and the other is the one that can dominate the hierarchy, and it is the Shinkong Ancient Road. Generally speaking, the two ancient roads people don't interfere with each other and rarely meet. These two ancient roads in the sky are developed by the master of our universe with great magical powers. The treasures of chances in them are much higher than those in Terra's ruins, of course, this is not worth mentioning. The most important thing is that these two stars and ancient roads, the adult will pay attention to it with his own eyes. Jian Wushuang, do you know what this means? This means that once you perform well in the ancient starry sky, you can enter that adult's eye. And once you really enter that adult's eye, it is against the sky good fortune. That Lord. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He couldn't think of anyone else in this universe who deserves the supremacy of blood. He used the word adult. Extreme Blood, who is that adult? Jian Wushuang asked, converging his thoughts. After hearing the words, Zun Shuebua Supreme thought for a while, and replied, the identity of that adult, you have not yet broken through the Supreme, so you still don't know. After you break through the Supreme, you will naturally know who that adult is. Chapter 4202. Second more. Oh! Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows in surprise. Is the identity of the adult so mysterious? I can't be supreme, but I do even have the right to know the name? Jian Wushuang, about the identity of that adult, you do not ask now, because even if you know it occasionally, it is not a good thing for you, said Shuebua Supreme Shensheng. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He is not a symbol and naturally knows that he should not ask what he should not ask. Seeing this, Zun Shuebua could not help but smile slightly, and said, Jian Wushuang, I can't tell you about the identity of that adult, but there are some secrets related to it that I can tell you. He froze for a moment, and Bloodwave Supreme said, do you know the Grand Race? This. I don't know. Jian Wushuang arched his hand, the words of the Grand Race, he once mentioned a word when Bai Fu Supreme was leaving, but that is not knowing it makes no difference. Bloodwave Supreme replied, the Grand Race of the Nations is held every 50 Chaos Conferences. By that time, the major forces of the entire universe, whether it is the Kingdom of Immortality, the ancient Holy Land, or the big names in the universe the Lone Ranger will go to participate, it is a grand gathering of the best in the universe. Originally, only supreme-level strong men will be able to get tickets, but this time the Cosmopolitan event, the adult released additional conditions to allow monks who dominate the level to enter. And this is just the beginning. The adult will choose 10 places in the cosmic event of the universe and become his boy. Listen to him. Jian Wushuang, don't underestimate the identity of the boy underneath you, the master of the former Taro ruins this time, Taro Supreme. Why can you become the invincible Supreme? Wu Jianshuang was shocked, and was not quite sure. More isn't Tyro Supreme, one of the adult's children? Bloodwave Supreme nodded his head and replied, yes, Tyro Supreme Kendo was extremely talented at that time, and he performed well in the Cosmic Race event. He was given a seat by that adult and became a listener for hundreds of years. One of the 7, it is this creation that made the Tai Luo Supreme truly soaring into the sky, becoming one of the most invincible Supremes in the universe. Speaking of which, the Taro Excalibur is the Lord who gave Tao Supreme. Wu Jianshuang heard the words, but felt a palpitation. Even Taro Supreme, was it just a boy in the adult seat? Sigh, how old is that lord? Wu Jianshou did not dare to think about it. Jian Wushuang, this opportunity is rare. The suggestion of this seat is that you hope to go and dominate the ancient road of the starry sky. Maybe you will have the opportunity to enter the Cosmopolitan event, even if you cannot be the 10 this time. One of the seats, but you can't even imagine the benefits of attending the cosmic event of the universe, said Bloodwave Supreme with a smile. I need to think about it. Jian Wushuang considered it, and said back. Jian Wushuang didn't know much about the ancient road in the starry sky. He was not a reckless person. If the ancient road in the sky really suits him, he would not want to miss this grand event of the entire universe. That's natural. Bloodwave Supreme nodded with a smile. The two chatted a few more words. At this moment, the disciples in charge outside the hall suddenly rushed in. Master Bloodwave, King 9 and 9 calamities are about to break the Supreme. What? Bloodwave Supreme and Jian Wushuang were shocked, then looked at each other with a smile on his face. Okay, it looks like our Palace of Life is about to have another Supreme Master of 9 calamities. Go and see together. After Zun Shuebua Supreme said, he and Jian Wu walked out of the Supreme Temple. When I saw that he had just stepped out of the temple, Sword Wushuang saw that the wind roared in the sky over the entire Palace of Life, the clouds were rolling, and a scene of heaven and calamity appeared. The King of 9 calamities dominates the realm of the ultimate, staying for more than 40 Chaos Era. Once this breakthrough is successful, becoming supreme, it must be a huge momentum. Bloodwave Supreme said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. As a special level of life with the same perfect level as his, Zhu Jiwu is as good as the ordinary Supreme. Jian Wushuang is also looking forward to seeing Zhu Jiewang's true breakthrough. To what extent? Thought of this, Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme, at the same time looted towards the residence of King Zhoujia. After a short while, Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme came to the 6th mountain, the residence of King Zhoujia. I saw a mountaintop, the King of 9 Kings sitting cross-legged, white hair scattered, a horrifying divine power, as if turned into a raging wave, slaps the slap of the void around him. Numerous disciples of the Shrine of Life came to watch one after another, with envious envy on their faces. This is the breakthrough of the Supreme, the most top combat power of the entire universe. No matter where it goes, it is a well-deserved behemoth. Shi Qingfeng was also there. He was holding a pot of sake in his hands, looking at the Zhu Jie King in the distance, with some envy, and smiling happily. Zhu Jie King, you have finally taken this step. In the distance, a slave was pacing back and forth uneasily. He looked worried, and sometimes looked up at King Zhoulong but wanted to say something, but was afraid he would disturb King Zhoulong. Only I can sigh. For a while, the golden light flashed, and Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme fell to a slave. Don't worry, with the ability of King 9 calamities, he can survive this supreme level. Bloodwave Supreme reached out his hand and patted a slave on the shoulder, said lightly, Master Bloodwave. Inu quickly met. You are welcome. Zun Xiebua waved and waved his hand indifferently, looking at the king of Jolong. Yang Yinus' eyebrows were low and his expressions were respectful. He gave a glance at the sword Wushuang next to him. His expression was a little complicated. Rumble. There are more and more dark clouds in the sky, and the grey one is thick and extremely heavy, giving a very depressed feeling. Roar roar tilde. There was a roar of gusts of wind, a flash of thunder, a silver snake flying, and the sky turned black in a flash. It started. Bloodwave Supreme's eyes were frozen, his voice fainted. Everyone hurriedly looked at the king of Jolong. I saw a terrible explosion, and a crack appeared suddenly in the entire thick cloud layer, emitting magnificent rays of light. At this moment, like the beginning of heaven and earth, chaos and dawn, the turbulence of the air, and the endless immortal fall. Chapter 4203. The first is more. I am in danger today and I will prove Supreme Avenue. Under the endless immortality, King Zhoujia, who sat cross-legged on the mountain, opened his eyes suddenly. In his eyes, countless avenues of gods spread and flow. His breath and divine power suddenly began to change, at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chong, and then headed for a completely different place. Hey! A golden light, centered on the king of the 9 calamities, shot out, and connected the world. At this moment, countless avenues evolve, countless divine powers flow, countless immortals fall, countless colorful clouds permeate, countless stars shine, as if the ancient immortal king came to the world. Extreme, succeed. A low voice came out of the mouth of King Zhoujia. The next moment, I saw the king of 9 calamities, standing up among the endless Xianhui. Between the heavens and the earth, there was a groan that shook the 9 heavens and 10 earths, as if the heavens were congratulating the king of Jolong. Let's go. King Zhoujia shook his head. Suddenly, his words followed, and the vision of the whole sky began to dissipate. After a short while, heaven and earth regained a sense of clarity. The king of Zhu Jialiao stood on the top of the mountain with a negative hand, and a white suit was hunted and screamed by the mountain wind for a long time. More than 40 chaos era. He is the king of 9 calamities, and at the level of ultimate domination, he has been trapped for more than 40 times. No one can understand his feelings, what dominates the first person, what comparable to the supreme, and he has never been a rare king. From beginning to end, what he wants is to break through the supreme, and just today, the king of 9 calamities finally completed his wish and achieved the supreme seat. Since then, the universe is so big that he will be invincible in all directions. The host. Yun Inu looked at the king of Jolong and couldn't help crying. If he said that the only person in the world who could feel the feeling of King Jolong was Inu. For as long as the King Zhoujia was trapped at the level of domination, he stayed with King Zhoujia for many years. He was full of loyalty and never changed. As soon as he wanted to go up and say something to King 9 calamities, he saw that Xie Boxian patted his shoulder and smiled. Ye slave, let your master calm down now. He Inu heard a word and nodded. After nearly half a column of incense time, the king of Zhoujia just spit out a stale air, his mood calmed down, and a smile hung on his face. Extreme blood, sword Wushuang, Qingfeng wait. The glance of King Zhouzai glanced and greeted everyone one by one. Congratulations. 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 Everyone responded with a smile. Wang Zhoujia nodded his head, then his eyes fell on Zhen Wushuang's face again, a smile on his face, and he strode toward Zhen Wushuang. At this moment, the king of Zhoujia is dazzling in his eyes, surrounded by fairy radiance around his body, just like a piece of timeless jade, and the whole person is full of immaculateness. Sword unparalleled. Originally I was still thinking, after you reach the ultimate realm and fight with you, now it seems that I have to go one step ahead. King Zhoujia smiled. Zhen Wushuang also quite regrets this. Both of them are perfect creatures. Whether it is magical powers or the understanding of the laws of the universe, the gap is not too big. If you can fight at the ultimate dominating level, you must the promotion of people will be great. Well, wait for me, after I reach the supreme realm, we will come to fulfill this agreement. Zhen Wu's eyes flashed firmness, and he replied. Okay. King Han of Zhoujia nodded with a smile. Rumble. At this moment, the sky suddenly changed, and a huge face appeared. The face of this man was made up of wrinkles, and his eyes were turbid. 9 calamities, come to the Supreme Temple, leave the imprint of the Supreme, and become the new Supreme of the Temple of my life. The voice of indifferent oldness came from this huge human face. Wang Zhoujia Wang nodded, and respectfully replied, yes. In the Temple of Life, if the person most respected by the King of 9 calamities is who it is, then it was naturally that he was led from the remote part of the universe to the Supreme of the Temple of Life. These more than 40 years of chaos, the main reason why he is anxious to break through the Supreme, and anxious to prove himself, is because of the Supreme Gav, and he does not want to disappoint the Supreme Gav. Fortunately, at this moment he finally broke through the Supreme, all past events, all dispersed with the wind. Sword unparalleled, I'll come to you later. King Zhoujia said, then stepped on, turned into a golden light, and disappeared into the sight of everyone. The crowd gradually dispersed after King Zhoujia left. Wu Jianshou brushed the manner as he thought about it. Now that he has just been promoted to dominate the 5th rank, in a short period of time, basically don't think about breaking through the ultimate domination. Therefore, it is no longer meaningful to stay in the Palace of Life. See if you can find a chance. She returned to the manor, cold as frost was closing her doors, and Jian Wushuang broke through one after another. Although she didn't say anything on her mouth, it caused a lot of pressure in her heart. She doesn't want to see that the gap between herself and Jian Wushuang is widening. A few moments later, the King of 9 calamities arrived as promised. At this moment, he has changed into a white silk robe, which is the symbol of supreme status in the Palace of Life. Sword unparalleled. The two sat down beside the lake, and a pot of hot tea was burning in the middle, and a slight amount of heat rose up. Wang Zhujiawang took up a cup of hot tea and took a sip, and asked, Wu Jianshuang, where are you going next? Wu Jianshou groaned and said, I don't know. I might go to the ancient road to the sky. Oh, Shinkong ancient road? Zhu Jiawang raised an eyebrow and replied, it's a coincidence that sword is unparalleled. I'm also preparing to go to Shinkong ancient road to practice it. Upon hearing his thoughts, Wu Jianshuang asked, 9 disasters, are you going to the grand family event? King Zhoujia nodded his head and said, that's of course, Jian Wushuang, you don't know. The grand race of the tens of thousands of nations will gather the entire universe. If you can get an admission ticket, the harvest will be great enough to meet you have to practice hardships for hundreds of millions of years every day. It can be said that in the depths of our universe, there is no one who does not want to participate in the grand festival of the nations. He froze. King Zhoujia continued, the only chance to participate in the grand family event is to go to Shinkong ancient road. The longer you go on the ancient road, the farther you go, then the more likely you are to be picked by that adult. In the grand race, if you perform well in the grand race, you may still have the opportunity to become an obedient boy in the adult seat. Wu Jianshuang nodded his head when he heard the words, and wondered, Zhu Jie, do you also know about the adult? King Zhuyan heard that he put down the teacup and groaned, and said, I also went to the Supreme Temple just after breaking through the Supreme, and the Supreme Lord told me that the name of the Supreme is taboo in the universe. The presence. Chapter 4204. Second more. Wu Jianshuang sighed lightly, and sure enough, the identity of that adult is only qualified to know. This seems to be an unwritten rule of the universe, a rule that flows only between the Supreme King of 9 robbers. Then when do you set off? Jian Wushuang cleared his throat and asked. Zhoumo is near, Jian Wushuang, who dominates the Shinkong Ancient Road and the Supreme Shinkong Ancient Road are not far away. At that time, the two of us can go all the way. King Zhoujia returned. Wu Jianshou smiled and replied, I have this intention. Ha ha ha, sword unparalleled, then we will make an appointment, and then go to the ancient road to the sky together. Wang Shuanglang of Zhoujia laughed. The two talked for a while, and the king of Zhoulong left. And Jian Wushuang also began to prepare to go to the ancient road to the sky. Before going to Shinkong Gulu, Jian Wushuang intends to raise a wave of strength again. In the short period of time, I basically do nt have to think about it. It is estimated that how much Jian Shuangsu can improve, the effect is minimal. However, this does not mean that Jian Wushuang cannot become stronger. Yi Yongye gave a sword, he just realized the fur, and there is still a lot of room to go up. The sword-cutting sword, a peerless killing sword skill learned by Jian Wushuang, has not yet been completed. Jian Wushuang strives to urge the sword-cutting sword to a satisfactory stage during this time. Power, I'm afraid there will be earth-shaking changes. And Jian Wushuang intends to try to urge the Taro Excalibur. Time turns, 10 years later. The sixth mountain, a secret chamber in the manor where Jian Wushuang is located. Wu Jian sat cross-legged, his body was introverted, and he could not see the slightest fluctuation of his power. He lay in front of his knees, with a dark golden body across the body, covered with mysterious patterns, and a huge long sword with a vertical eye at the hilt. A wicked breath emanated from the long sword, and it was exactly the Taro Excalibur that had a mighty universe. Sword unparalleled, set off quickly and go to the ancient road to the sky. At this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded in Jian Wushuang's mind. Are you finally leaving? Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a gleam of light passed from his eyes. Next moment. Fengshen vine. Sword Wushuang's big hand waved, and ancient vines shot from his sleeve, starting from the position of the sword with the Taro Excalibur entangled. Suddenly, all the evil spirits on the Taro Excalibur were sealed. Qi Jian Wushuang picked up the Taro Excalibur and put it in a deep red sandalwood sword box, and lost it behind him. Then, Jian Wushuang stood up and walked towards the outside. Outside the Laoshan Mountains, King Nine Robbers stood with his hands up and down, and stepped in the void. Seeing Jian Wushuang coming out, he nodded and said, Sword Wushuang, can we start now? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded and replied to the cold frost that was breaking through the retreat. Let's go then, said Zhoujia Wang faintly. After a short while, the two came to the gate of the Life Shrine. With a wave of King Zhujia's hand, a dark spacecraft was swept up by the wind and swept across the starry sky. The two of them flew into the spacecraft. Boom! There was a loud roar, and the spacecraft gave a roar, which suddenly accelerated suddenly, turned into a small black spot, and disappeared at the Temple of Life. The ancient starry sky is located in the deepest part of the universe, and it is extremely far away from the Temple of Life. However, it is nearly 90,000 years away from the grand cosmopolitan event, so they are not in a hurry and did not deliberately rush. Inside the universe boat. Jian Wushuang, how much do you know about the ancient road in the starry sky? King Zhoujia asked casually. Wu Jianshuang heard the words, could not help but grin, and shook his head, I don't know. King Zhoujia took a deep breath, and his expression gradually became clear. Then I will tell you that in this starry sky, the sky is gathered in the ancient road, which almost brings together the most powerful Tianjiao in the entire universe, and there are countless strong ones in it. For example, the great prince who worshipped the kingdom of God, the young emperor of the great kingdom of Sun, and the saints and virgins of some ancient sacred places, each of them are as invincible in the master as I was. Even when I was in the ultimate of the realm, I dare not care about this ancient road in the sky. Wu Jian Wushuang heard the words, and his expression couldn't help rising. The universe is so big, Tianjiaro's Evilders are countless, and Jian Wushuang thinks that he is invincible in the realm of before he is arrogant. The sword is unparalleled. I heard that there are 18 cities in the ancient sky, and the people in each city are fixed. If you want to go far in the ancient sky, you have to move the city people rush out and take their place. This ancient road in the sky, the more you go inside, the stronger the strength of each city. As for the strength of the last few cities, even if I was the one who dominated the realm, I couldn't see the depth. The King of Nine Calamities said Shen Sheng. Jian Wushuang heard the words and squinted his eyes. These 18 cities sounds really exciting. There was a flash of turmoil in Wu Jian's eyes, and the more King Zhoujia said, the more he looked forward. Time flies, the cosmic boat continues to advance in the universe. After 800 years, the 9 kings and Sword Wushuang have finally reached the extreme ancient road. Sword unparalleled, I'm here, I have no use holding this spacecraft, you can take it. King Zhoujia stepped down from the cosmic boat. He took a deep look at Zhen Wushuang. Zhen Wushuang, live well. I am looking forward to the moment when the two of us will meet at the Cosmos Grand event. Wu Zhenshou took a deep breath and arched his hand back. Sure. After a short while, King Zhoujia stepped away and disappeared into the ancient road of supreme starry sky. The rest of the time is the lonely travel of Zhen Wushuang. He followed the ancient route of Shinkong, which was dominated by King Zhozai, and traveled in the universe all the way. Wu Zhen sat cross-legged and continued to comprehend the magic of Yongye. He can slowly feel that his understanding of Yongyi Shentong, after he broke through the 5th level, is rising at a very fast speed. 100 years have passed. Qi Zhen Wushuang finally reached the ancient road that dominates the sky. He dominates the ancient sky, which is much more lively than the deserted scene of the extreme ancient sky. A large spacecraft stands in the sky, and people move quickly. A round of huge black holes, suspended like a monster's mouth, suspended in a starry sky. Wu Jian Wushuang kept seeing a powerful ultimate level master, with a look of indifference coming out of the vortex. I always have this huge black hole, which is the entrance to the ancient road to the sky. Wu Jian's eyebrows were raised, and he was interested to look at the entrance to the ancient road in the sky. Chapter 4205. The first is more. If you say that in the Taro ruins, you can occasionally see the 5th and 4th series of masters, then in front of this ancient sky, there are no monks below the ultimate master. Even these ultimate master monks are powerful and magnificent. They are all in the ultimate master and have reached the top level of the strong. This makes Zhen Wushuang can't help but look forward to it. What will happen to the ancient road in the sky? This ancient road in the sky is really well deserved, just the outermost, there are no weak people. Wu Zhenshuang sighed with admiration, then walked down the spacecraft, closed the spacecraft, and walked towards the gate of the ancient road to the sky. Stop coming. At this moment, when Zhen Wushuang was about to set foot on the ancient road of the starry sky, the two ultimate masters holding Chang Ji and Chang Ji in their hands violently crossed and blocked the sword Wushuang grid. Zhen Wushuang frowned and said lightly, "What do you mean? You want to go in? You can pay 1,000,000 cosmic source stones." The two ultimate masters indifferently left the sword Wushuang, expressionless. Qi Zhen Wushuang squinted his eyes. The 1,000,000 source rocks of the universe were only a small number to him, but this did not mean that he would be like a fool and let others pit. He has never heard anyone talk about entering the ancient road to the sky, but also need to pay the source stone of the universe. Why don't they need to pay for the source stone of the universe? Zhen Wushuang glanced sideways and said lightly. He was next to him, a top ultimate master, and walked in without hindrance. They are the ultimate masters, naturally they don't need to pay the source stone of the universe, but you are just the 5th level master, can you compare with them? The two gatekeepers looked up at the sword unparalleled, and the corners of his mouth evoked a whisper. To tell you the truth, we are His Majesty the Lord of the First City. If you want to enter the ancient road of the starry sky, obey the rules and pay 1,000,000 universe source stones. Zhen Wushuang saw this, his eyebrows could not help getting cold. So what if I don't pay? Zhen Wushuang said coldly. No. Suddenly there was a smirk on the faces of the two gatekeepers, raised Chang Ji and stabbed at the sword Wushuang fiercely. Get out of me then. Huh. A violent divine power suddenly followed Chang Ji, stabbed Zhen Shuang's chest fiercely. Look for death. Wu Jianhuang's face flashed a little anger, raised his hand, and shot at the two door guards severely. The two gatekeepers in charge of the gatekeepers are the strongest in the ultimate domination. Not only did Zhen Shuang see the sword, they turned and patted them. The two guardians couldn't help looking at each other and laughed. Is this man a fool who can't do it? A junior 5th-ranking master, who is so overwhelmed and shoots at us. Oki, we have been here for so long, this is the first time we have met such an interesting person, don't rush to kill him, just let him play with us. The two of them laughed and talked. The palm shot by Zhen Wushuang was not at all serious, and their eyes were full of teasing. Zhen has no expression on both sides, such a stupid thing, he has not seen much before, Naturally he will not be angry about it. Huh. Suddenly, the sword was unparalleled in the palm of his hand, and he was slammed on the two Changji. The majestic and mighty divine power directly turned these two handles into instant powder. Get it? What? Suddenly, the two janitors were covered with sneer, and the smiles froze instantly, holding back a horror. How can the Lord have such a terrifying power? He didn't wait for their words to finish. The sword Wushuang's palm, they directly started the two from the skull and made a meat sauce. Both humans and gods are gone. Stupid. The sword was retracted without expression on both sides and faceless. To deal with this kind of ordinary overlord, he would not even use Wu weapon Excalibur and directly exploded the most primitive divine power. Some of the ultimate masters around the puppet, after seeing this scene, did not have much surprise. After a little footsteps, they continued what they should do. The Shinkong ancient road gathers the universe's heavenly pride and evil, and there are many people who can cross the border to kill the enemy. They have long been surprised. I just don't know, this new guy is from what power the Son of God? They shook their heads and strode away. Suddenly at the entrance, Jian Wushuang stepped on his feet, suddenly his body swept up, and blasted towards the black hole at the entrance of Shinkong ancient road. Inside the Shinkong ancient road, it seems to be a very long dark channel. After Jian Wushuang erupted at full speed, after flying for a long time, he gradually saw a ray of light. Slowly, the light is getting bigger and bigger. The next moment, Jian's eyes are suddenly bright. I saw a huge towering city in front of Jian Wushuang's eyes. This city is huge and unimaginable. The wall alone is 100,000 feet high. Above the wall, there is a huge plaque engraved with the three characters First City. Listen to the King of Jiulong, there are 18 cities on the ancient starry sky. These 18 cities are 18 checkpoints. It seems that this first city is the first checkpoint. Wu Jian whispered to himself, his eyes continued to glance down. I saw a huge stone monument at the gate of the city gate. The stone monument is engraved with 1,000 glittering names, the first of which is the entrance of the starry ancient road. The skeletal master said in the guard's mouth is the master of this first city. No wonder the two guards dare to be so arrogant and want to come back to rely on this skeleton to dominate. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said to himself. His eyes continued to look around. I saw countless ultimate masters, sitting cross-legged under the city wall, who did not bother anyone, all in retreat. Jian Wushuang did not rush to the city, but sat down on his knees, intending to understand the rules of the ancient road in the sky. Sir, presumably you have just come to Shinkong ancient road? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded behind Jian Wushuang. Wu Jianshou looked back and saw a chubby young man looking at him with a smile. Is there anything wrong? Jian Wushuang frowned, stepping back a bit, and asked. The chubby young man replied with a smile on his mouth, have no need to be nervous, let me introduce myself first. My name is Wu Hai Lord. You can call me Wu Hai. How dare you call me? Blood Sword. Sword Wushuang said faintly. Sir Blood Sword, I have a word of persuasion, I wonder if you would like to listen? Wu Hai Archer arched his hand and said. But it doesn't matter. Jian Wushuang replied faintly. Okay. Wu Hai dominated for a while, his expression of kindness gradually became calm. Chapter 4206. Second more. Blood Sword, I think you are only dominated by the 5th grade. This kind of cultivation is okay to be placed in the outer universe, but in the ancient road of the starry sky that proudly walks on this day, it is quite dangerous, so I advise you can join our Casual Repair Alliance. Our Casual Repair Alliance is as ordinary as you and me, or weak masters. In this starry sky, we can take care of each other and have a guarantee. How? After finishing speaking, Wu Hai's master pointed to the distance. Jian Wushuang looked in the direction he pointed, and saw more than 20 ultimate masters with a more ordinary atmosphere, nodding in a friendly smile at Jian Wushuang. Withdrawing his gaze, Jian Wushuang said faintly, Thank you Wu Hai for your good intentions, but even if you join, I have always been a lonely person, and I am afraid it will be difficult to integrate into the group. Blood Sword, We are all very good people. If you don't join us, how do you know if you can't get in? Wu Hai Master said quickly. After waiting for him to finish speaking, Jian Wushuang waved his hands and sat down cross-legged, slowly closing his eyes and entering the practice. Seeing this, the master of the Wu Hai Sea did not know where Jian Wushuang was trying to catch people, and sighed, "That blood sword, you can do it yourself." I waited for a while, and the master of Wu Hai didn't see Jian Wushuang's reply. He shook his head and left. After Wu Wu dominated, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a sneer sneered in the corner of his mouth. Wu Wu dedicates himself to diligence. When he saw Wushuang, was he a fool who had never seen the world? Distant distance, where more than 20 ordinary ultimate dominates. Wu Hai, that kid won't join us. Failed. This group of ordinary ultimate masters frowned and asked. This kid's life is too big. Wu Hai dominated a gloomy face, his eyes flashed with yin, where there was a half-hearted and kind-hearted look. More than 20 of them, knowing that they could not perform well in the Shinkong Ancient Road, not the opponents of Chanjiaro's evil spirits, they joined together and devoted themselves at the entrance of the first city of Shinkong Ancient Road to kill like a sword. Newcomer into the ancient sky. The routine used by Zun is also roughly the same as the one that he used to cheat Jian Wushuang just now. He used the newcomer to enter the Shinkong Ancient Road and did not understand the situation of the Ancient Road. He desperately wanted to find someone to hold a group. After a temptation, he joined forces to kill. Let's go, change next one. Do Wu Hai dominated his face again with a kind smile, and walked towards a new-looking newcomer in the distance. Sir, how do you call it? Just as you saw Jian Wushuang, Wu Hai's eyes shone with kindness and smiled. In this ancient starry sky, there are really 3 teachings and 9 streams, and there are all characters. Jian Wushuang sighed. In the distance, the new man who was deceived by the Wu Hai master was following the Wu Hai master with excitement, approached the crowd, and was then taken away. Seeing this situation, Jian could not help but shook his head. He was not a newcomer to the universe, and he knew what the routine was. At this moment, Jian Wushuang saw a middle-aged ultimate master sitting not far in front of him, swept up one step, and walked towards the gate of the first city. Someone wants to challenge the people in the city. Have you entered the city? Qinglin dominated the gate of this first city and has been here for 3,000 years. This time when we go to the city to challenge, we must have a certain victory. As I said, the people in this city should change. Many people around the meditation group saw this scene and whispered and talked. Jian was eyes flickered. It seems that the situation here is almost the same as that of King Zhoujia. The number of people in this first city is fixed. If you want to enter the city and continue to go back, you will have to people in the city squeezed out and took their place. As everyone discussed, they looked at the stele where the gate recorded the ranking. I saw it not long before. There was a sudden flash of golden light on that stele, and the ranking suddenly changed. First place, Bone. Second place, Mu Chong. Thousands, Qinglin. Soon after, Jian Wushuang saw that a skinny old man flew from the city with an embarrassed face. His face was extremely ugly. I do want to come here. This person is originally 1,000 people. In other words, the seat that belongs to this person was replaced by the middle-aged master. I saw the old and thin old man. After looking at the first city unwillingly, I didn't say much. Then he sat down and crossed his knees, and began to repair. Then, on that stone tablet, Jingguang was still flashing, only to see that the ranking of the Qinglin dominated one after another, until it reached the middle position before stopping. At this scene, there was a sudden exclaim outside the gate of the first city. 632. Qinglin dominates this time. The rules and regulations contained in that city are far stronger than those outside this city. Maybe Qinglin's master might have a chance to impact the second city. Time passed slowly. Jian Wushuang did not rush into the city, but watched calmly. During this period, Jian Wushuang saw one after another, but most of them ended in failure, and only a few people succeeded. It is worth mentioning that the master of the Wu Hai went to the city and succeeded, and the ranking was not low, which was higher than that of the Qinglin leader, ranking 518th. As for the new man who was taken away by the Wuhai master, Zhen Wushuang never saw it again. After a few more days, Zhen Wushuang stood up with no expression on his face and walked towards the gate. In the days of observation, he has fully understood the rules of the ancient road in the starry sky. Naturally, there is no need to sit here and waste time. Dominate the 5th series? The 5th level dominates the city, which is rare. Who is dominated by this 5th series? When some of the ultimate masters outside the city gate saw the situation, they gave a flick. Suddenly, the group of Sanzhu Alliance members shrank their pupils, and then sneered on their faces. Isn't that the boy who rejected us at the beginning? It looks like this kid has confidence in himself. I hope this person prays in his heart not to meet the Black Sea, otherwise this person is afraid that he cannot come out alive. Wu Zhenshuang, with a calm expression, walked towards the city gate step by step. With a deep muffled sound, the gate opened and Zhen Wushuang stepped in. Rumble. The gate of Wuqing slowly closed, and the figure of Zhen Wushuang disappeared into the sight of everyone. The people outside the city gate looked up and looked towards the stone monument outside the city gate with interest. Rarely, it is the 5th grade that dominates the repair for the city. Chapter 4207. The first is more. With a gust of wind blowing, Zhen Wushuang looked at him with a calm expression. I saw a barren land in this city, but the breath of divine power and law was very strong. There are countless low-lying halls built in this city. Each of them is hung with a wooden sign engraved with different numbers. From 1,000 to the first, a whole 1,000 low-lying halls are arranged in a one. Zhen Wushuang narrowed his eyes. From the moment he stepped into the first city, he felt that in this world, there seemed to be a pair of invisible eyes that were watching him. Wu Wushuang knew that this was not his illusion. The master of those eyes, if he did not guess wrong, would like to be the master. Wu Wushuang didn't care. He walked in front of the door of the thousand palaces, and immediately took down the wooden sign and knocked on the door. The next moment, I saw a burly man holding a sledgehammer and striding out of the temple. The 5th grade dominates. The burly man looked at Zhen Wushuang, and saw that Zhen Wushuang's breath was only fluctuating at the 5th level, and he suddenly curiously gave a quiet beep. Immediately, he shook his head and said in a rough voice, I am a giant god, little one, do you want to challenge me? Wu Zhensu nodded his head, his expression calmly, yes. Let's get started. Immediately, an invisible wave surged in the void, covering the place where the two were. This intangible wave, the vast horror is extremely extreme, and Rao is a sword unparalleled, cannot help but be surprised. This should be the rules in the ancient road, to determine the winning and losing of the two sides, and to protect the fighting between the two, will not cause a residual wave, affecting other people around. Zhen Wushuang's mind flashed. Roar. I saw the burly roar violently, the whole body's skin appeared red, and the blue tendons were twisted like tree roots. He lifted the sledgehammer and slammed hard at the sword unparalleled. Wu Zhen's double-sided hammer on this incomparable majesty, his expression was dull, and he slowly raised his finger toward the burly man. A loud bang exploded, and I saw the sledgehammer split apart. The sword's unparalleled finger stopped at his forehead in the eyes of the burly man. A sign. Wu Wushuang looked calm and continued to walk towards another temple. How is it possible? The burly man opened his eyes and stared at Zhen Wushuang's back with a stare. Immediately, a cold sweat rose from his forehead. The finger just now, as long as you push 3 inches forward, you can kill him. First city, outside the gate. Success. How is that possible? Isn't this person dominating the 5th grade? Could it be that I'm wrong? Will this man come from the prince who is born by the top forces? To defeat the enemy across borders, this is not common. Many of the masters discussed with an interested look on their faces. They are not so frightened. After all, this ancient starry road has gathered the universe's arrogant and evil spirits, who can cross the border to kill the enemy. They have stayed here for so many years and have seen a few. It has long been strange. On the stone tablet, the number 1000th seat, the words Julie dominate gradually disappeared, replaced by the word bloodsword. After Julie's came out, ask him what the is going on, and how he can't even beat a 5th-ranked dominator. Wu Yu, the ultimate master who is familiar with Julie, joked. After a long wait, everyone saw Julie dominate the disgrace and walked out from the gate. Julie dominates. What is the situation with that bloodsword? Tell us. Ha ha ha, dominated by Julie, you can be ashamed this time, but you have been defeated by a 5th-level kid. Is that something good for you, boy? Julie's friends deliberately laughed and joked. Julie dominated Wenyang, glared at them, and hummed, "Who are you, Julie? What are the benefits?" After a long pause, the master of Julie took a deep breath, and said solemnly, "This person's horror means. If you haven't seen it before, don't talk nonsense." After finishing talking, Julie stopped talking, and instead sat down with her knees crossed, her eyes flashed with a touch of complexity. Until now, he still had a lingering fear. That finger is really terrifying. He lost his convictions. Julie, he really is as scary as you say? Well, tell the big guy, how did you lose? The ultimate master around him chuckled and laughed. In their view, the giant master said this, but he just found himself stepping down. After all, only by saying the sword Wushuang is powerful enough can he look less embarrassed. Julie dominated Wenyang, glanced across the faces of these ultimate masters, took a deep breath, stretched out a finger, and slowly said, "This man defeated me with only one finger." As soon as this sentence fell, everyone in the audience was shocked. What? Only one finger? Julie, do you mean it? At this moment, everyone couldn't help but a slight change in complexion. You must know that the cross-border defeat of the enemy and the hard effort to defeat the enemy are different. As the people questioned toward the master of Julie, I saw someone suddenly exclaiming in the crowd, "Look, the ranking of the bloodsword has risen again." Everyone hurriedly looked at the stele. I saw the word bloodsword on the stone tablet, which is soaring at a speed like a bamboo shoot. 99th place bloodsword. Number 998, bloodsword. 865, bloodsword. 63, bloodsword. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang's ranking on the stele suddenly soared to the 663th place, just lower than the first Qinglin dominator. At this moment, the outside of the city gate became as quiet as death. Everyone was caught in front of the scene, and the shocked eyes almost fell down. They watched with all their might, Jian Wushuang's ranking, soaring forward without any staying. Almost when they just blinked and looked again, Jian Wushuang's ranking had already moved up a step. I remember the last time I came to the first city, the promotion speed was so fast, or the great prince of the kingdom of God. An ultimate master said with a swallowed throat. Isn't that saying that this man is the kind of heavenly pride that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the great prince. There was the ultimate dominator of tongue. Amongst the crowd, the only person who has a casual repair alliance has a slightly unpleasant expression. Well, this person deserves to be compared with the great prince. But the great prince has a famous invincible master in the entire universe. From which nest did this person emerge? Among the Sanzhu alliance, there is a famous master who disdains Lung who said. Everyone heard the words and couldn't help but look at him. Chapter 4208. Second more. Unexpectedly, I still underestimate this person, but this bloodsword should be almost the same here. Wu Hai is in the 518th place. This bloodsword meets Wu Hai and it is definitely not good. The ultimate master of the Sanzhu alliance smirked. However, it was such a discussion of the people that Jian Wushuang's ranking suddenly surpassed Qinglin's dominance and reached a point where it was more advanced. The first city, inside the city. A sign. Ji Jian said with no expression on both sides, and then proceeded to the temple in front. From beginning to end, Jian Wushuang only used one finger. No matter what the ultimate master, Jian Wushuang only pointed to the past, and the majestic divine power directly crushed it. The time passed slowly, and Jian Wushuang's ranking also skyrocketed with it. In just a few hours, the ranking of Jian Wushuang reached 519. The next one is the Wu Hai master who has previously recruited Zhen Wushuang. Wu Zhenshuang looked calm and walked step by step to the door of the hall with the number 518 wooden sign. He reached out and knocked on the door of the hall. Immediately, the master of Wu Hai came out of it. Is it you? When the master of Wu Hai saw Zhen Wushuang, he was shocked, and then there was a cloudy look on his face. He is not a fool, otherwise he would not kill so many newcomers at the gate of the first city without ever kicking the iron plate. When Zhen Wushuang can come to this position, it naturally represents Zhen Wushuang's strength, far beyond his imagination. Blood Sword, I didn't expect you to be able to come to this position. No wonder he was unwilling to join us at the beginning. Wu Hai's dominion resuspended a kind smile on his face. With his rather thick fat face, it seemed to be in human harm. Wu Zhenshou sneered in heart, this person is a smiling tiger, looking at the kindness, but he is not sure what kind of bad tricks he is thinking. Master of Wu Hai, let's start. Zhen Wushuang said lightly. Blood Sword, I do need to fight between us. I exhausted the strength of 9 cattle and 2 tigers, and finally managed to climb to this position, and you really look relaxed with Blood Sword. I know myself, I do think it will be your opponent. Wu Hai's master scratched his head and grinned broadly. Oh, are you serious? Zhen Wushuang raised his eyebrows and smiled. Of course, Lord Bloodsword, I have spent so long in this starry sky ancient road. I may not have learned anything else, but I have developed a good wink. Lord Bloodsword must be like a dragon in the sky in the future. Characters, I do have to show ugliness, I would like to admire the wind. Wu Hai master said with a smile. After Shu said, Lord Wu Hai turned and walked towards the temples behind Zhen Wushuang. Zhen Wushuang saw this, with deep eyes, he no longer cares about him, and continued to walk to the higher-ranking temple. At this moment, the abnormality suddenly rises. The master of Wu turned abruptly, and the sweet smile on that fat face became full of violent killings. He took out a dark flag in his right hand and killed the sword unparalleledly. All of a sudden, a horrendous black mist sprang up, sending out a scream of 9 evil spirits, turning it into a huge mouth, and beheading it towards Zhen Wushuang. The sword is unparalleled, as if he didn't notice the horrific killing in the back, and continued to move forward. Seeing this, the master of Wu Hai laughed with a smile on his face. He can already imagine that Zhen Wushuang was torn up by the evil spirits in this banner. Blood Sword, go to death. Wu Hai dominated Pang Di, who was extremely incomparable. However, he didn't realize that an icy swordman had already shot from the fingertips of Zhen Wu and killed him. There is no hindrance, like a knife-cut tofu. This icy sword is straight through the heavy black mist and passed through Wu Hai's dominated eyebrow. Suddenly, the domineering sword power directly killed every inch of divine power in the Lord Wu Hai's body. Until the death, Wu Hai's master still had a big smile on his face. Yang Zhen Wushuang still hasn't looked back, not even a footstep, the hair ends of the black hair slightly raised, and continued to move forward. Outside the city gate, many ultimate masters are watching this scene without blinking. Wu Hai is dominated right away. The guy in Wu Hai has always been scheming and cruel. He is not an easy character to deal with. I don't know if Blood Sword can survive this time. The ultimate masters are all discussing at will. At this moment, they have no laughter on their faces. To this day, anyone can see that although the Blood Sword's cultivation is only the 5th level, its combat power is definitely the terrible existence of the dominated ranks. As a result, they began to look forward to Zhen Wushuang, and they wanted to see where Zhen Wushuang could go. After all, if you can witness the rise of Tianjiao with your own eyes, it will be a beautiful conversation in the future. Outside of the city gate, the people who only take part in the alliance are not very good looking. Well, who are they? Blood Swords? The 3 princes who worship the kingdom of God, or the young emperors of the kingdom of God of the Sun? Or the ancient holy places, the immortal inheritance of the Son of God? The rise of Tianjiao? Maybe it is too mythical. A master of a casual union, said sourly. As the leader of Wu Hai master, they naturally support the master of Wu Hai. Correspondingly, they are doing everything they can to devalue Zhen Wushuang. You see, the ranking of Bloodsword has stopped. Sure enough, it seemed to verify their guess. When Jian Wushuang rose to the 529th place, the rising speed stopped abruptly. Ha ha ha, I said, how could this Bloodsword be the opponent of Wu Hai? Suddenly the scatter master who previously derogated Jian Wushuang laughed. However, before he finished laughing, he suddenly seemed to be choked up by his throat, and his arrogant laughter came to an abrupt end, and his complexion turned into a pig's liver color. I saw a flash of golden light on the stele, and the name belonging to the master of Wu Hai was slowly erased by an invisible large hand. Wu Hai, he lost to the kid's hands. The Sanzu master shouted unbelievably. Not lost, but dead. Not far away beside him, an ultimate master shook his head, his eyes gleaming. As people who have spent many years in this starry sky, they can naturally see the difference between defeat and death. If it is only a defeat, except for the master who ranked last in the stele, he will be kicked out of the city gate, but the others will only be ranked one by one. And if it dies inside, the name belonging to that person will be erased directly. Dead, dead. After hearing the words of the Sancho Alliance, they were extremely scared. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.